April 9, 1942, Bataan fell to the Japanese. The eventual fall of the Philippines would be America's greatest military defeat and surrender in history. Today we're going to take you behind the scenes in the MacArthur Memorial Archives and show you a map of Bataan, a map that survived the surrender, and a map that has only recently come to light.
Now these are the papers of United States Army Forces Far East. This command was created in July of 1941 when MacArthur was recalled from retirement. It was after the Japanese had gone into Indochina, and then they militarized the bases there, and Roosevelt had to bring MacArthur back to the colors, and he activated this command out in the Philippines. Now all these are the headquarters papers for that whole Philippine campaign, 1941-1942, which led to the fall of the Philippines in May of 1942, the biggest surrender in U.S. history. Now all these papers cover the intelligence as well as the operations reports of that whole campaign. All the personnel stuff got wiped out on Mindanao. It had to be burned because the guy who had it, General Seals, was about to get captured by the Japanese. But this all came out by submarine. It stayed with MacArthur in Australia, went with him to Japan, and then he brings it back to the United States, where it stays in New York until he donates it to MacArthur Memorial, where now it constitutes Record Group 2. Now with Record Group 2, we've been doing a lot of cataloging as well as a lot of work trying to preserve all the materials in there. Along with the collection came hundreds of maps. These were all the headquarters maps that were used on Corregidor about everything going on Bataan. Now this is a very neat map. It was captured off a Japanese motorcycle rider. He was like a scout. But as you can see, we've put it into this mylar protective that we can now use it so we can hold it up and be able to look at it up close, because they are 75 years old now and very fragile. But in doing this project of encapsulating everything in mylar, we found a very important map, and because it is now the anniversary of the surrender of Bataan on April 9th, 1942, this map has even more great importance, and I'd like to show you that right now. Now this is the headquarters map that USAFE had on Corregidor about the campaign on Bataan. And the amazing thing about it is it shows the final days of the fall of Bataan, when everything fell apart on the main line of resistance. Now, this is an outline of Bataan right here. These markers show where all the different units are that were holding the defense of Bataan at that time. And it shows how it was divided right down the center between the 1st Corps and the 2nd Corps. It lists the left subsector, right subsector of the 1st Corps, and then the D, C, B, and A zones that were the defensive zones of 1st Corps. And it lists the commanders right up here. Blumel, who became very famous in the defense withdrawal, as well as Lau, who got creamed and wiped out almost in the first day. Jones holding this, Parker holding this, commanders up here. Most of these are Filipino troops, but what this shows right here is a big question mark, and that comes from that April 3rd attack. Japanese, Nara's 65th Brigade came right down, Trail 29. See these markers mark here, because there's no real roads. There's an Orion Bagak road which goes across, but it's just like a dirt road. But this shows all the trails that they use, because this is all pretty much jungle. Mount Samat right here in the middle was the American post that they observed to use artillery on the Japanese. But the Japanese had massed everything for this final attack. They thought it would take a month. It took about 5 days. Japanese 4th Division moved in against the 21st Filipino Division, and the 65th Brigade came in right on the 41st Division under Vicente Lim. 41st pretty much evaporated. The 21st held on till the next day, but once the Japanese got up Mount Samat, they were able to take those artillery observation positions, and then it was pretty much over. The 21st collapsed. They tried to pull back here to the San Vicente River. You can see the outline right here of all the units that are aligned, but basically these aren't full units. Everybody is starving to death. Everybody is wiped out by this point, and you can see the successive lines that go back from April 5th all the way down to April 8th, where you get right down to the Lamau and the Cabcaban final positions. And that is where finally 2nd Corps headquarters, as well as General King, head of Luzon Force, and General Wainwright on Corregidor know that the end is come because the Japanese just had too much firepower as well. They had complete control of the air. But the amazing thing about this map is it shows the whole withdrawal, and then as you can see, they wrote right on top of it, out on April 9th. Now, what makes this one so special is this was kept by William Troinovsky. He was in the headquarters of the operations divisions of USAFE. Now, Troinovsky was the same guy who packed up all the materials that were then sent by submarine to Australia. So he was the guy who packed up all these maps and everything else. And what he did was he didn't know if he was going to make it. And within there, he put in his diary that he kept throughout that whole Bataan Corregidor period. And you can see day to day how things are going, but as well, he's getting letters from people that he knows at the front. But what makes this such an interesting and kind of a mystifying piece is all the positions are right for the withdrawal that goes from April 3rd to April 8th and finally to the surrender of April 9th. But yet, written on it is February as the date. So was this kept at the time? Because as we know from April 8th, when Blue Mel calls down to Second Corps headquarters, they put him in touch with Wainwright, and that's when Wainwright finally knows it's all going to fall apart and gives Blue Mel the decision to do what he needs to do. So headquarters back on Corregidor didn't really have a good idea of what was going on. They knew what Second Corps was telling them, but we wonder, was this filled out later? Because it has that February date, and were they just not thinking when they put this on there? Even more so, this is a guest card for the MacArthur Memorial. And in 1988, William Troinovsky, the guy who kept this map, showed up at the MacArthur Memorial. He was surrendered on Corregidor, went through the camps, was on a hell ship that took him to Japan, but he was liberated in Japan. And he came here and didn't talk to anyone, and didn't know we had the diary, and nobody was able to ask him about this map, which is now one of the really central pieces of that whole Bataan